My half-brother destroyed my only picture of my late mother, so I hit him. Now everyone is mad at me. For some backstory, I, 16M, who recently moved in with my dad, 47M, after my mom passed away. My dad hasn't been much of a presence in my life, and he and my mom were never married. He has a wife, Sarah, 48, and 2 kids, Amber, 14, and Mike, 18. When I moved in, it caused a lot of tension in the family. They didn't want me there and gave me the cold shoulder. Sarah, Mike, and Amber often speak French to each other because they know I don't understand. Even though my dad has tried to enforce an English-only rule in the house with little success, Mike ignored me completely for the first month, even though we were forced to share a room due to the limited space. I tried to be nice, but I was grieving my mom, and the rapid changes were overwhelming. 2 days ago, I found postcards, pictures, and letters from my mom ripped to pieces and scattered across my bed. I kept them in a box under my bed, and since Mike was the only one home at the time, I know he did it. I confronted him, and we started yelling at each other just as Sarah and Amber returned home. I can't remember what Mike said because I was so furious, but I ended up hitting him. We exchanged punches, and I accidentally elbowed Amber in the nose while she and Sarah tried to break up the fight, causing her to bleed. When my dad got home, we were all still yelling, and Sarah was trying to kick me out of the house. I couldn't stop crying because those photos of my mom were irreplaceable, and I didn't know if they could be repaired. My dad tried to calm everyone down but didn't punish Mike because there was no concrete proof he did it. I got in trouble for throwing the first punch, and Sarah is still trying to convince my dad to send me away. Amber and Mike keep saying I ruined their family by coming here, but I had no choice. I know I shouldn't have hit Mike, but I was so angry and didn't think straight. I know I shouldn't have escalated things, but am I really at fault here? I don't know how I can continue living with Mike. Relevant comments by OP. Question: had you met your dad before this? Had you met his family? It's been about 2.5 months since mom died, and it was really sudden. My mom and I were really close, and I think I've seen my dad twice before I had to go live with him, and not for almost a decade. From what I figured out, Sarah knew about the affair but didn't know about me until my mom died. Amber and Mike didn't know about the affair at all. They're mad at me for existing, but they're also really upset with my dad, for good reason. Question: can you stay with your mom's family? A family friend? It's just my grandparents on my mom's side, and they basically disowned her because my dad was married to his wife when my mom got pregnant. They're very religious, and I haven't had any contact with them since I was born. They didn't even come to her funeral. I don't have any family on my mom's side that can take me in, and my dad lives in a different country than my mom and I lived in before, so we're not close to anyone I used to know. Update 1. It's been about 6 months since I had to move in with my dad and his family after my mom died, and I still feel like his wife and my half-siblings despise me just for being there. The issue of my mom's pictures getting destroyed turned what was already a shitty situation into something that is just killing me. I ended up sleeping on the couch for almost 2 months because I couldn't stand the sight of my half-brother Mike after what he did to my stuff, and started carrying a backpack around the house with anything personal that I had brought from my mom's apartment wherever I went so nothing else could be damaged. Mike ended up apologizing to me, but it seemed more of a show for my dad than an actual apology to me. My dad's wife Sarah and my half-sister Amber still barely acknowledge me and still almost exclusively use French in the house, which I'm only now starting to pick up words and conversation for. I've always felt like a stranger in this house, and while I understand why they don't want me around, I don't know what I can do to try and make things work. The worst of it came 3 weeks ago when I lost my keys to the house and got stuck out in the rain after I came home. I tried calling my dad, but he didn't pick up, and I rang the doorbell as many times as I could because I saw Sarah's car outside the house, so I knew she was home. There isn't much close by us, so I couldn't walk anywhere to wait. By the time my dad got home an hour and a half later, I was soaked and cold, and when we got inside, Sarah just said that she was on a call and couldn't hear the doorbell ringing. I couldn't even talk to her and just went upstairs and cried in the bathroom before going to bed. My dad apologized later for not seeing my message sooner, but that's not really the issue here. I feel sick living here and can barely eat or sleep half the time. My grades are tanking, and I don't feel like I can talk to anyone. I miss my mom, and everyone is pretending like she never existed, and I have to basically do the same thing so nobody at home gets mad at me. The main issue is that a week ago, my dad's best friend Joe and his husband Brian, whom I've met a couple times and stayed with the first couple nights after I reconnected with my dad while he was trying to figure out how to bring me home, heard about me being locked out of the house and asked if I wanted to come stay with them for a while. I want to say yes so bad because anywhere has to be better than where I'm staying now. But I know it's going to cause issues with my dad because he ruined his entire relationship with his family to be able to bring me home, so I wouldn't have to go into foster care, and it's going to seem incredibly ungrateful. I know my dad's trying. He really is, but I don't know what I'm going to do if I have to keep living in his house until I turn 18. Relevant comments by OP. Question: is your dad really just standing by and letting you take the heat for him? There was definitely a lot of tension between my dad, Amber, and Sarah, but that seems to have mostly gone away after the first couple months. Mike still seems pissed at him, but it kind of feels like they just turned all that anger on me. I've tried talking to my dad about it, at least a little, But there aren't a lot of times where it's just the two of us, and I don't feel comfortable saying anything in front of everyone else. Nobody really does anything to me in front of my dad, except the language thing, which he does try and stop every time he catches it. But Mike and Sarah usually just do things behind his back to hurt me, and I think my dad doesn't want to believe that his wife and kids are capable of treating me like that. Update 2. I followed a couple of people's suggestions and texted my dad's friend that I wanted to leave, and they ended up suggesting we all go out to lunch. I think they could both tell how nervous I was around my dad, and my dad's friend Joe ended up being the one to bring up the idea of me moving out. My dad seemed completely blindsided by it and asked why I wanted to move out. Joe and his husband Brian reminded him about everything that's been going on at home, and I just kind of sat there. My dad seemed really upset, and it made me feel terrible because I already felt guilty about leaving, but then he just asked if I really wanted to go. I said yes, and he just immediately agreed. It kind of hit me that I wanted him to try and fight for me, to say sorry for everything that he's been letting happen, and for my dad to try and keep me at home, but he just let me go like it was nothing. It's been hard after my mom died, and my dad's the only family I've got left, so it really didn't make me feel any better about leaving, even though I don't have to deal with my dad's family anymore. Brian took me back to their apartment while Joe went with my dad to get my stuff from the house, and they had already set up their extra room for me. He apologized that they hadn't been able to do this sooner, and that they hoped I would like living with them. Joe came back with all of my things, and they kind of gave me time to decompress. I ended up sleeping for almost 16 hours because I was so exhausted. Over the last week, they've been really nice about making me feel at home and have talked to me about getting me into therapy to deal with losing my mom and everything that happened at my dad's house. They're also trying to figure out how to move me to a different school so I don't have to deal with my half-sister and everyone who knew my half-brother. It's the first time in months that I feel like I can actually breathe, and I don't feel like I'm constantly on guard. My dad hasn't texted me much or reached out in the last week, so I don't know what's going to happen with him, but for now, I'm safe, I guess. Final update. Things have been relatively quiet since I moved out. I transferred schools and started therapy a few months ago. Joe and Brian have been really kind about giving me space to grieve my mom, and I don't feel like I have to hide all of her stuff anymore. I managed to get a couple of the pictures digitally repaired thanks to someone reaching out to me on here, and it's not the same. At least it's something. Family-wise, it's still hard. After my post blew up, it ended up reaching Amber, my half-sister. She said she had read all the comments and started feeling bad about everything that her mom and brother did. She ended up apologizing for what she had done and understanding if I didn't want to forgive her. We texted for a while about all of it, and we've been in an okay place since that talk. I still haven't heard anything from Mike and Sarah, but I didn't really expect to either. My dad has come over to Joe and Brian's apartment to see me a few times, and we go to lunch about once a month, but other than that, I haven't really seen him much. Joe did tell me that about 3 weeks ago, my dad moved out of the house and got his own apartment. From what it sounds like, he and Sarah aren't separating yet, but he's giving her space. I tried texting him about it, but never got a response. Things are okay now, even though it's been close to a year since my mom died, which will probably be hard when it happens. Thanks to everyone who messaged me or commented. I'm sorry I didn't respond to everyone, but the response was a little overwhelming.